Does cell phone use increase your risk of cancer? It's a hot-button debate. The latest development, a memo from Dr. Ronald Herbermann, director of the University of Pittsburgh Cancer Institute, offering precautionary advice on cell phone use to his faculty and his staff. We welcome to Larry King Live Dr. Devra Davis, director of the Center for Environmental Oncology at the University of Pittsburgh's Cancer Institute, Dr. Keith Black, chairman of the Department of Neurosurgery and director of the Maxine Dunis Neurosurgical Institute at Cedars-Sinai in L.A., and also from L.A., Dr. Paul Song, radiation oncologist. Dr. Davis has this new book, The Secret History of the War on Cancer. All right, Dr. Davis, what do you make of Dr. Herbermann's memo?
Well, I'm very
should frighten everybody.
Well, we don't want to frighten people. We want people to take precautions. That's the reason he wrote the memo.
Precautions being?
Well, to use an earpiece and to not keep your phone on your body all the time, and to make sure that children are not using cell phones.
At all?
No. Young children particularly need to be careful, and particularly toddlers who now have cell phones that they use to play with. This is a really bad idea.
What led Dr. Herbermann to this finding?
Well, he looked at the literature and was aware of the growing concerns that we do not have enough information, nor do we have enough time to be sure that cell phones are safe, and there's reason for concern that they may be harmful, so we need to take some precaution rather than waiting to experiment on the rest of us.
I mean, we've only been using cell phones with a high frequency for less than 10 years, for about 10, 20 years. So, again, you know, the concern, and based on the biology that we know with the development of cancer, the real concern is what happens after 20, 30, 40 years. Mm-hmm. And that is what we need to be concerned about. And that's why I think the University of Pittsburgh advised us to be cautious.
The evidence, Dr. Song, having done so many interviews over the years against tobacco, was statistical. Mm-hmm. It wasn't, they didn't know why tobacco caused lung cancer, only that it caused lung cancer. You use tobacco, you got an increased chance. Is that going to be the evidence here, statistical?
It could be, but it may be another 10 or 20 years before we have the necessary statistics to make those recommendations. What we do know from radiation studies, whether or not it was people exposed in Hiroshima to kids treated for cancer with radiation, is that sometimes it took 15 to 20 years before people developed cancer that secondary that we could attribute to the radiation.
What about 8 and 9, 10-year-olds all over elementary school running around with them now?
Well, right now, unfortunately, of the 28 million children in this country between the ages of 8 and 12, about half of them are using a cell phone. Sometimes it's their mom and dad's, but using it frequently. And we're all very concerned about that because we know that the cell signal gets deeply into the brain of a child.
You concerned, Dr. Black, about the child?
Yes, I am. We know that young brains may be more susceptible. And they have a longer exposure, and some of the studies have also suggested that the longer exposure, the higher the risk. I think the key thing here, Larry, is that we would assume as a society that cell phones are safe, that the government wouldn't allow us to use this device unless it was safe. The reality is it's a source of microwave radiation. There have been studies to suggest that there may be an associated risk of brain cancer and also a benign tumor of the ear, and there have been some studies to suggest eye tumors as well.
And in New York, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, Dr. Gupta wanted to add something about cell phones and children. Doctor?
Well, you know, one thing that Dr. Brawley brought up is this idea that it's electromagnetic radiation that can be of concern. And Larry, I know you like pictures. Sometimes they can be worth 1,000 words. Take a look here. This was actually from a study looking at the amount of penetration of this electromagnetic radiation in a 5-year-old over here. Certainly see that it's more. This is the brain, and this is the amount of radiation penetrating into the brain. Compare it to a 10-year-old and compare it to an adult. Now, again, this type of radiation is not ionizing radiation, which everybody agrees, I think, is bad for you. But the question is, what is this really doing to a young child's brain? A lot of these studies being done on adults, and now you have children using these phones, and they're going to use them their entire lives. They're going to have 60, 70 years of usage. What is the effect of that amount of penetration of radiation on the brain?